Hey, I'm Megan of Fantastic Fertility, and I wanted to change up the style of how I do my videos because I want to feel a little bit more authentic when I'm speaking to the camera. I have to be honest, with the past several videos I filmed, I felt a little bit like I needed to get everything perfect with every single take, and that becomes pretty stressful. So I wanted to show it better for myself and just present in a more conversational way, and I hope that might resonate with you. So I wanted to talk today about my story with how I came across fertility awareness, and I'd love to hear your story too in the comments because I think that so many people have a bit of a similar path, and I really want to share in that and talk about that more. So my story with fertility awareness, honestly, it kind of starts with how I grew up. And obviously, I'm not going to start with when I was born and go from there. But just to put it shortly, I grew up in a really conservative household where there wasn't much talk about sex, certainly not talk about properly identifying your anatomy or being able to do anything with fertility awareness. I just kind of grew up in a culture that was very religious and conservative, and I honestly began to develop as a young adult because of all the messaging that I was constantly told as someone growing up, this crippling fear of having an unintended pregnancy, because this sense of purity culture was so intensely ingrained in me the whole time I was growing up. And spoiler alert, what's really ironic about all this is that my mom actually did practice natural family planning, which is very similar to fertility awareness. Fertility awareness is sort of like a secular version, whereas natural family planning, there's definitely elements of religion and spirituality, and there's slightly different sets of rules between the two. So lots of overlap in terms of basic body literacy, but I was just never really taught any of this. And honestly, I guess looking back now with the lens that I have, I guess I can recognize that my mom was practicing it, but at the time I certainly had no idea. And so again, I just grew up feeling totally kind of blind and powerless. I got the basic, half-hearted sex ed in school once a year, and it was pretty much useless, which, unfortunately led me to have all of these really intense anxieties, and honestly almost a sense of I don't know if trauma is too big of a word, but it was a pretty intense fear where I would literally have panic attacks when I would think about the idea of it. And it was really scary to me. So thankfully, one day in college, I was hanging out on YouTube, looking around at videos, as I do, still, years later. Ever since 2006, I've loved YouTube, and here we are still. And I came across a video about fertility awareness. This woman was practicing it, and she talked a bit about it. I looked into it, and I purchased a book about it, and I really wanted to try and self-teach. I wanted to self-teach because I had no idea that FAM educators even existed. I didn't know if it even was a thing. I literally thought it was this one book, and that was it. I just had to read the book, and then I would know what to do. So this was in college, and I kept the book under my pillow. I was honestly pretty ashamed, I guess, of trying to practice this. I didn't feel confident in it, but I was trying to break through that sense of shame and that lack of confidence. I was really trying to empower myself and to teach myself. So I read this whole entire book, literally cover to cover, and I tried to self-teach. I did my best with my lowly college person budget to get a thermometer, but unbeknownst to me, it was the wrong type of thermometer. I just was trying to use a fever thermometer, not a basal thermometer. So that was mistake number one. But I tried to self-teach. I got 4 days into charting before I gave up for 2 years. So that was my experience with self-teaching. I had poured all of this energy and effort into trying to do this by myself, and it felt really isolating. But I was doing my best with all the tools that I had available to me at the time. Again, I didn't know that educators existed, and I was just trying to do my best. So again, I got 4 days into it. I just felt so overwhelmed. The biggest barrier for me, which looking back is so silly, is that I couldn't chart my temperatures on the paper chart that came in the back of the book because my temps were too low to fit on the graph that was like pre-marked with the temperatures. And so I literally, because of that one little problem at first, I mean, there were many, but that one was first, it became too frustrating and I couldn't go through with it. And I just gave up. For 2 years, I gave up. And it was kind of sitting on the back burner until finally, a couple of years later, I decided, like, I really do want to do this. I want to give this my best shot now. I was feeling a bit more secure in my choice, and this time I looked into it further and I discovered that FAM educators, fertility awareness method educators that were certified actually existed. And not only did they exist, but there were actually a bunch of different methods that you could choose from. And that was incredible to me. I really finally felt like, oh, okay, like maybe I can get like help with this and support with this, because looking back, this is a big lesson that I learned. In order to properly learn fertility awareness, it's really important to learn it with a certified educator. That part is really key. Number one, just to learn it with someone because you need that sense of support. But number two, it needs to be the right type of someone who's equipped and able to give you the right type of support. So something like a general like cycle coach or something, while they may have a lot of skills to help with some elements of the cycle, they're not going to have the training and education and skills to be proficient and honestly like safe to teach someone the full fertility awareness method if they're not certified. So that part was key, and I learned that. And I personally started with a 6-month course in Justice, the Justice method. And I actively participated in it. I involved my partner. It was like a night and day learning experience from when I had tried to teach myself back in college. And I felt so much more empowered. I felt like I was actually retaining the information this time. I felt like I was really going to be able to do this. I felt like if I had questions, I could actually ask a real person those questions. I didn't feel alone, and like if I was missing one little detail, like it would throw everything off. Like I really started to understand the importance of that support, and I began to like feel it and feel empowered by that, which was not only a different change from the type of learning experience I had with the method, but honestly just a big personal change for me, going from someone who literally my whole life, like as far back as I remember even learning about what like periods were or sex, what it was, or like fertility in general. This was the very first time I was actually understanding those things beyond just like, well, it's my period, time to wear a pad. Like I actually understood why you get periods, what hormones, go into that process, what biomarkers to look for, and what those biomarkers are telling you. And it was crazy empowering. I felt like I could like look at the chart, read it, and actually understand, and to really be able to use this as natural birth control. So that was just, again, like coming from such a limiting background, and honestly like so many layers of fear and like ingrained trauma about the idea of sex, where before it literally used to cause me to like shake and like panic, like physically shake and panic, because I was so terrified. And now I finally like actually felt confident, which was a night and day change for me. So that experience, after I actively participated in the process, I was really learning. I then became a moderator for the Facebook group called Fertility Awareness Method of Birth Control, which at the time I think maybe had like up to maybe like about like 20,000 people in it or so. So it was already a pretty big group, but now I think it has around like 40,000, which is incredible how it's like, again, relatively small in regards to the population at large, but much bigger, compared to what it was. And I'm seeing left and right nowadays, like, this idea of fertility awareness is becoming more popular and more accepted, which is incredible. This change has happened in only about, about 10 years, which is very, I think, inspiring, and I'm really excited for that. So through that experience of being a moderator for the group, as I said, there were literally thousands of people actively participating in this group. So every single day I would be, seeing all different types of cycle charts from people who had PCOS. They were postpartum for 2 years. They had endometriosis. They had adenomyosis. They had regular cycles. They had irregular cycles, but they didn't know why. There were so many different types of charts every single day. I got the practice of, looking at the charts, being able to identify what I was seeing on these charts. And I felt like not only was I learning about myself, but about people in general. And that was so exciting. I had come from that experience of learning through a course, and I really wanted to be able to do that for someone else, because I felt like, and this is again, so common when you're learning about FAM, you begin to have this information about the physiology of your body. You want to ensure that other people have that information so that they can also be making informed choices about their health. And it's just really empowering and exciting. And so I wanted to be able to share that with others. And particularly, I was finding that there was so much information out there with instructors about trying to get pregnant, but fewer instructors specialized in actually using FAM as natural birth control. And I was like, why? We need this for people. There are so many people who either can't be on birth control for whatever reason, or they just don't want to. And to be blunt, the current options for birth control these days are not great. They have not really been advanced in a few decades. There certainly have been some improvements in some areas, and I'm really excited for the different tools that we have to use with FAM. But generally, the general science behind these different birth control methods has not really advanced. And also, unfortunately, we still have very few effective options for male birth control. It's pretty much withdrawal condoms, and there are some other devices available in Europe, but generally it's a very young field that is not given much attention in research. If you're curious for more information about that, I can make another video about that, but there's an incredible podcast called Intended by the Male Contraceptive Initiative. I'll put a link down below in the description so you can go check that out as well and just be informed on that front as well. So I continued to chart my cycle. I charted and continued on. I became a certified educator with FEM. There it is right there. And it was such an exciting process. And my experience leading up to that point really informed me. And I went forward, I started my business, and from there, I built my course, my online course. I began to work with, dozens of clients at first, and now today I've worked with over 170 clients, which is really exciting. And I've just continued to do that. But also along my path, back in 2020, kind of around the start of 2020, I was actually at the height of my business at that time. I was welcoming many clients into the course. It was really an exciting time, but I also was experiencing or beginning to experience a health issue for myself. And I didn't know it at the time, but this was called neuroplastic pain or perceived danger pain. And I realized, it took me a long time to realize this, but I was burning myself out. And what was interesting is, although fertility awareness can tell us so much about our health in terms of our hormones and reproductive health, and it can give us clues and signals into what's going on, my body was doing that, right? It was showing me that I was having shorter luteal phases, which is a key sign that you can be really stressed. And I knew I was stressed, but I didn't understand why. And over the next couple of years, again, this was back in 2020, it's 2023 now, And I'm kind of still working through this, but I began to learn more about what neuroplastic pain is. I began to get treatment specifically for that condition finally, after so many years of not knowing what was off with my body in that way. That insight with managing my health condition also led me to completely stop using Instagram, and to really get super intentional with my use of social media, which is perhaps a tangential part of this story and this experience, but to me, it really all folds together, and it really makes sense because honestly, had I never practiced fertility awareness, I don't know if I would be sitting here telling you or telling anyone out there that I finally was able to get to a point in my healing where I was actually able to listen to my body. What's so powerful about fertility awareness, I think, is that it creates this consistent practice of attuning to your body and what's happening and listening to your body, looking at the evidence of what is playing out on your chart to continue to be attentive to what's going on with your body. And it's different. It's much different than anything else I've ever practiced. I've done lots of yoga in the past. I've done therapy. I've done, a lot of attention to my breathing, but nothing is as unique and, in my opinion, effective as fertility awareness. When you're consistent with your charting practice, the insights that it will bring you are phenomenal and very unique. So I feel like for me, it helped to create this sense of a strong mind-body connection. It helped me to identify when certain habits in my life were not only not serving me, but were actually becoming actively toxic to my literal health. Like when I would spend too much time on Instagram for my business, I would become very stressed. And I knew that I was stressed on the surface, but I didn't realize that for me and my condition, that stress was greatly contributing to my symptoms. And I was realizing that it's so important to identify not only your strengths as, a person, and for me as a business owner and as a charter, but also to really listen to and recognize and accept my body's limits and my own boundaries. And so I wanted to share this experience with you today because, again, all of this stems from learning how to chart. And I think for a lot of people, they're first drawn into charting by the aspect of natural birth control, or they want to maybe gain like a couple of health insights or something, or perhaps they're looking to like treat like a certain like temporary condition or something. But what I'm here to tell you is it is truly a lifestyle and a daily practice that brings awareness and compassion to your body, to your health, and it's a really unique experience that I just haven't found anything else that's like it. There's no other thing that I can think of that you can do at home, see how exactly your cycle is playing out in real time, and gain those types of insights from that data. So it's a unique experience. I wanted to share it with everyone because I often will talk about this with my clients, but I think it's important for people out there to hear. If they're considering using fertility awareness, if you're considering using fertility awareness, I want you to know there are many benefits to it beyond just kind of the simple basic first step of using it as natural birth control. It really goes far beyond that. And I'm here to tell you, like, I've been practicing for, I believe I'm on either my 89th cycle or my 90th cycle right now. And I have no regrets. I would absolutely recommend it. I'd absolutely go back and do it. So, on that note, if you are someone who is in the process of searching for a FAM educator who's certified, I'm here to help. I have my online course. I'm welcoming clients. And if you feel like after watching this, we could be a good match to work together, I would love to meet with you. So what you can do is schedule a free connection call via the link in the bio, and we can meet. We can talk just like I'm talking now. We can walk through any questions you may have about the course, and my goal in those sessions is to ensure that you have fully informed choice, you know everything to expect, And if you're not familiar, just know that I also do have custom payment plans as well. There's lots of options, and we can find something that will fit best for you. I hope this finds you well whenever you get the chance to listen to this or watch this. I look forward to connecting with you all. And I also really want to know what your thoughts are about this or about your own experience in the comments below. All right, have a good one. Bye.